What's going on there, guys? Special treat tonight. You've got the one, the only, by himself at the moment, anyway. We'll try to get Terry Blankenship from Missouri on here with us, but had some technical difficulties, so I will be laying it out by myself tonight. Mr. Dustin, he is on vacation. Can you imagine that? Being able to take a vacation on a Tuesday night for today's bite. Guys, as you sign in, like every week, looks like I can actually see comments this week, so it's going to be a fun thing. Got a lot of good things to talk about this week myself. Been a very exciting week. Last week, I kind of spilled some of the special news that I got to fish with somebody pretty special last week, but also had some great trips this week I won't even talk about. See Torch, Shane Jones, Mr. Charles Henderson, Colby, Mr. Tom. Appreciate all you guys coming on here. Mike, Tim, all you guys. Thank you. Got 47 people. Like I said, make sure you hit that thumbs up, and we got a good show tonight. Like I said, Dustin's down in Florida. I actually talked to him a little bit ago, and he said he was going to take an afternoon boat ride. Can you imagine that? Gets to ride on the boat every day, but he's going to do it again this week. Yesterday, myself, I actually had Mr. Let me see who all had in the boat this past week. Last week, I had Hank Williams Jr. A lot of people that follow me on Facebook on my guide service saw that probably. I kind of almost spilled the news before it came in. Get to talk to Hank quite a bit, and he wanted to come crappie fishing, wanted to take his grandson, and so we made it happen. He flew in and stayed here in Jackson and got up the next morning, took him and his grandson and his son-in-law out fishing. His grandson, I think he's been fishing with me about 3 or 4 times now. Hank, probably about 8-9 years now. Just developed a really good, cool relationship with those guys. And, man, I'm going to tell you what, we whacked them as well. So, kind of like I've been talking about for the last month, the technique that I've been really doing a lot, it's casting these itty bits. Just been really phenomenal, these little baits. And let me tell you, if you're trying to look for, get these tough crappie to bite, downsizing has definitely been my key. But I want to talk about some of the mistakes I see people doing and, how to kind of get that under control and fix them. Appreciate everybody hitting that 25K crappie connection. I'm going to need all your help tonight that I can get. Like I said, I'm doing it by myself. So definitely make sure you got some good comments and questions. Hit me up. Like I said, it's going to be a very interesting show and doing completely solo. Not my favorite way of doing things, but that's how it goes sometimes. John, Torch, Stanley, Jeff, Hale, Derek, Kemp. I know all you guys got some great questions for me because, like I said, I'm going to need some help tonight. Mr. Bobby and Miss Linda went fishing with me yesterday, and, Bobby and his brother, Mr. Jimmy, which we just lost Mr. Jimmy here probably about a month and a half ago. They started crappie fishing with me probably a little over a year ago, and you hear me talk about it a lot, and I'm sure they're watching tonight as well. We talked about the whole fishing almanac and the pressure and, if it affects the fish and all that. And, last year, Mr. Bobby called me the night before that guide trip and was like, man, I think we need to reschedule the fishing is poor tomorrow. And I was like, Mr. Bobby, the fishing's going to be fantastic. Overlooked that. And we went out and we smoked them that day. So, but Miss Linda, special shout out to her. She, first time I ever had a client bring me turnip greens, frozen turnip greens. And actually my wife and I ate them last night and they were fantastic. Probably the best turnip greens I've ever had. So, a good tip for a guide is sometimes food. Absolutely enjoyed them. Special thanks, Miss Linda. Best greens I've ever had in my life. Also, like I said, Hank last week was real cool. But also had, let me see who else last week I had fishing with me. But today I had Pat Robbins. Him and his son, they came in. We went crappie fishing and had another really good day, but I want to kind of talk about it till we get some good questions. Mr. Stephen Sullivan, congratulations. Might get Stephen on here. We'll see what he can do. He just went up to Truman Lake and won a tournament up there. So that was a very good thing. We will get some crankbaits going too. Another thing I'm going to do at the end of the month, or we're planning on at this moment, everything kind of works out, is we're going to go to the PTG tournament in Grenada. We get the dates. Somebody can post it up here for me. But my wife and I, we're going to go fish it together. First time we ever actually went and are planning on going fishing a tournament together. So, guys, if you're up there, make sure you take it easy on us. We'd like to do pretty good in that tournament. It's going to be a fun thing. Got some fish reports coming in, so I'm going to have a lot to talk about tonight because it's all about me here talking. Questions are definitely welcomed. Mr. Charles Henderson, he's went up to Sardis last week, caught a lot of shorts, and to get to good ones. Had to catch a lot of short fish to catch some good ones. Mr. Charles, spill some more of that fish report. Let's see what it's about. Chad, fishing in Alabama is great. Just 400 degrees, LOL. We got some wind today, though. Man, Chad, it's the same way here. We've had wind the last 2 days here. Had to really plan on areas I could fish today. And, the wind kind of shut us off from fishing a lot of the areas that I wanted to fish. But we may do what we had and what Mother Nature kind of gave us. And we went after it, and we had another good day on the lake. So, it's about wind direction. I think this is one thing I think of right now of this year, the 2024, when it comes to crappie fishing, has been managing wind. And a lot of people say, well, how do you deal with wind? The best way you can, you just got to keep going fishing, put your head down, fish hard, and fish what you can. Today, I actually fished a stump that I normally don't fish a lot, but I knew it was in a very little protective cove. And, man, it was just absolutely hammered and full of black crappie on there. And the best thing about a spot like that is, especially using live sonar, I can see them on the screen, so I know I'm in a good spot. But, you can't fish it all day or anything. You've got to hit it when it's active and move on. And one of the mistakes that I want to talk about tonight is actually knowing when it's time to leave a spot. And live sonar, definitely helps with that. But even if you don't have live sonar, you've got to put in your mind, when is it time to leave an area? When is it time to leave and go try out a new area of the lake? And first thing I always think of is I never really want to leave biting fish first off. If I see these fish and I see them really reacting to the baits on live sonar, that's what I want. Now, if they stop reacting, I know right then it's time to leave. If I throw a couple different baits and try a different couple retrieves and they're not reacting to anything that I'm doing, and I'm talking 5 to 10 casts, and I don't see any kind of movement from the fish, I'm going to flat out leave them. I'm not going to stay there. I'm not going to waste too much time. And it kind of even goes back to if I was spider rigging, for example, and go through area, and I was at one time getting bites, let's say every 5 to 10 minutes, and all of a sudden it shuts down and I'm not getting anything. Leave it. Even though you might know these fish are there, some things change from, light to too much shad moving areas, something, or just boat presence. Change it and leave it and move on past it. A lot of times I see guys and they just fish the same thing, for hours. And I know one of the things in my mind is those fish just don't tolerate that boat presence that long of time. So once you kind of get an area and you're not getting the response that you should, pack it up and go to another spot. That's probably one of the biggest mistakes that all fishermen kind of wind up doing is sticking in the spot for way too long. Let me see. I sent a question about long line, and it says, what's the best way to cast a brush piles? I normally long line. Brian, a couple of different ways when you go about when you cast into brush piles. One, of course, stay downwind of it. Point your boat, face into the wind, and try not to get too close to them first off. Another thing is I like to actually cast a little bit past them, and I'm talking 5 to 10 feet. Cast a little bit past them, let your jigs go down, and let's say this is the brush pile here. Let me see if I can get the camera work to do. Your jig's coming down. Now, I'm not going to let it come down and go into the brush pile. I'm actually let it come down, bring it over to the top of them, and I'm talking 3 or 4 feet, then let it glide down. And as soon as it's just about to the tip of active fish or the fish that you're seeing on your screen, then I'm going to start the retrieval way. 99% of the time, that's the way they want it. And that's the way they want it the last couple of days. And, you know, I see people a lot of times they'll cast them down and let them and just try to bring the jig straight through the brush pile with them or stump or whatever they're sitting on. These fish like to feed up, and we've always heard crappie bite up. What really just ignites them, for me anyway, is bringing it down to them, and just about when you see it getting close to them. And live sonar has definitely helped this technique out tremendous amount. Is right when I see that jig getting right about to them, I'm not going to let it dip into them. I'm going to let it dip down and then bring it right up away. And you'll see those fish peel up and start following, and then they'll bite them. The next mistake that most people do whenever they're fishing, and, you know, I've seen it from the last 5 or 6 weeks since I've been really casting to them a lot, and all last summer as well, is, you know, they'll see a fish start trailing behind them. And your natural instinct in your mind is, I need to slow down and let this fish get it. And I always tell people that goes totally against what Mother Nature does. And if you see shad busting on the water and everything else, or I kind of think if I had a wild dog or a bear or any kind of predator chase after me, one, I wouldn't slow down. And number two, I wouldn't stop. So if I've got somebody or something chasing me that I am in danger of, is I'm going to keep moving away from it. And same thing that happens with these baits. So if you cast down and you get a fish that's starting to trail it, don't stop, don't slow down. That's not how things work. Great question. Appreciate it there, Brian. Hopefully that kind of helps you out a little bit. Mr. Torch, crankbaits are on fire in Mississippi. You know, June has always been probably one of my favorite months to pull crankbaits. And, you know, we're after the spawn's all over until next March, February, depending on where you're at. So these fish are through the spawn. It's all past tense, and they're really wanting to feed. Good thing about crankbaits is you're going to cover a lot of water, and I see this weekend it's going to be really hot too. So if you can, put a bimini top on your boat. Another thing that I think I've had it for about 3 years now is just a battery operated fan. I've got a Milwaukee 18 volt, and that little fan will run a full day of fishing. Now, like I said, it's got a big 18 volt battery to it, but those fans will make your life a lot easier on the water. Guys, definitely, if you hadn't done it yet, hit Crappie Connection, or excuse me, 25K Crappie Connection in your hashtags. Even when you do Facebook posts, guys, it helps us out more than you think. Anytime you can comment from the YouTube side of things to Facebook, definitely helps us out. Appreciate everybody doing it every week. It's just a little something. And, you know, Mr. John Mayo, he's saying better unpack those pink crankbaits. I do not doubt John Mayo one bit, because I know he catches a ton of fish as well. But he better unpack those pink. Now, Barnett, you better leave those pink crankbaits packed up. You're not going to need them here unless you like catfish. Where's the Ginger and Greg? I know they're up in Sardis fishing, so hopefully they get some fish in the boat here. Robert, Ricky, Dustin, Greg Holder. What's up, Greg? Stephen Sullivan, the biggest mistake he says that he sees a lot of people make is learning boat control. Oh, man, it has definitely changed the way we fish when it comes to live sonars. It is I fished the first, I guess, 4 years without brakes on my boat, and I'm using power brakes. And their slogan is a game changer, and that is absolutely correct. Another thing with boat control, even if you don't have brakes, brakes just, it's kind of like running. Let me see a good comparison. Anyway, it's just a world of difference running brakes on your boat and not having brakes on your boat. Can you do it without them? Absolutely. I did it for 3 years. Now, I don't think I would fish a single tournament without doing them, without brakes as far as live scope. It just helps you kind of maintain and spook less fish and keep your eyes on the target. Yeah, Wesley, man, I'm by myself. Dustin's actually he's on vacation, he says. He might just be playing hooky. I don't know. Mr. Charles Henderson, he caught him at Sardis casting a 1/16 ounce double rig, itty bit, grasshopper, and monkey milk. Great colors. Let's see. Paul, he bought an Ultrex. Let me show it on the screen for you guys can kind of help me out. Bought Ultrex Quest live scope bracket for a small shaft on Ulterra. What do you recommend? I've just bought a 0-degree mount and I've got a Garmin Force trolling motor, but I think even before that, when I had an Ultrex, I just used a 0-degree mount that just goes directly on it. There's a lot of great manufacturers out there can help you out with that if that's not what you're really looking for. But I just ordered one off Amazon. It was like $30-$40. Marty, he said, wish you had a good report this week, Brad, but we literally got our tails kicked at a new lake this weekend. A lot of boat traffic, had them scattered. Bad. Not giving up. We'll try again this weekend. Marty, what lake were you at, man? We'd like to see if we can maybe help you out some. Let's see. Floyd, thank you. 25K crappie connection, guys. Keep them rolling. Gibson Crappie Guide Service. What's up, guys? It's no guys tonight. It's just Brad. Dustin's on vacation. Hey, Gentry's got a fishing report. She says, her and Greg fished Enid today. Win was a serious challenge for us. 4-1 throwbacks to keepers. Pulling cranks. Ginger, what was your best color up there? Kind of give us some more details, Ginger. I know you got them. How many inches into the water should you have your trolling motor? For me, I hadn't measured it, and it kind of depends on how many people I got in the front of the boat or whatever. I'm running a 57-inch shaft Garmin Force, and probably I would say 18 inches or so under the surface is good. The 2 foot, I like it pretty far because most of the reservoir, as everybody knows, gets kind of choppy a lot of days. So I run it under the surface as much as possible. Joshua, appreciate the 25K crappie connection. Kevin, big fan fishing small profile halyard jigs in shallow water. Kevin, I know you're an Alabama guy, isn't that right? There's Robert. He says another thing he wants to kind of follow up on is he's been speeding up the retrieve whenever their fish leaves the pile following. Some days you can actually speed it up. And I know I just said about stopping, but if you're speeding it up a lot and the fish is charging out, if you'll stop it or pause it for 1 second, a lot of times they'll come up and actually smoke these those little baits. Crappie Kev, what speed are you pulling crankbaits at? You know, for me, Kev, I've always pulled 1.5 to about 1.8 has been my really sweet spot when it comes to pulling crankbaits. Um, I've never had a lot of success in my memory anyway that says under 1.5. I just don't think these crankbaits get enough action. Doesn't vibrate, just not enough action in to get them going there. Let's see. Let me see. Let's see. So that's the speed I've been running the crankbaits. Always been doing that speed, 1.5 to 1.8. Brandon, let's see. Keep on these questions, guys. We need them all we can get tonight. You just got your lonesome guy here. He says, been some good fishing on wind-blown banks with stumps and brush in 8 foot of water or less. Wow. You know, one of the piles that I fished today, the tip of it, I actually could see fish as shallow as 3 foot. But it's a really unique scenario that these fish are hanging on, and it's a big stump, and on the top of the ledge it sits, and it kind of drapes down into a 45-degree angle. But the top of the stump's above the water that you can actually see from water, and then it goes down to about 16 foot. But these fish are wrapped around it on both sides of it and completely underneath it. But the top side of it is sticking up, and those fish are sitting right beside it, right at water level. Robert Hughes, 1.5 to 1.6 of his speeds. Brian, perfect tip. Just started crappie fishing. Just started fishing live scope about 6 months ago. Learned a lot about crappie. Been fishing for all my life. Man, I can tell you, me personally, I feel like I learn things all the time when it comes to crappie fishing. And, you know, one of the mistakes that I see a lot of guys doing, and they can be in the boat with me or by themselves as well, is, you know, not changing things up. And I think we get used to the scenario in our mind, this is what's working, instead of trying something else. You know, it's easy getting that rut and say, all right, they're just not going to bite today. Especially live sonar has definitely changed the game with us knowing that we're fishing in an area that's holding a lot of fish. But changing things up is one of the things that, you know, makes a guide be able to guide on a daily basis. We can't just go out and fish one spot every single day and expect to catch fish. It just doesn't happen that way. You know, some area of the lake can be on, and some of the lakes, areas of the lake can be off. So it's just all about changing things up a lot of times, Brian. Let's see, William. He said, messed up and put 20-pound Power Pro on my crank reels, and it's so small they run too deep and too close to the boat. That can happen. You know, I like to run them closer to the boat because typically I am running tight contour lines. So I like running them closer to the boat just for that fact. But if you got an area that you've got spooky fish, you know, it can have a downside of it as well. So one thing I'd ask you, William, have you pulled any like Bandit 200s, you know, to get further away if that's an issue you had? Changing up these from Bandit 300s to Bandit 200s, going to a 200 style, not as deep running bait, but you can stretch them out further away from the boat, can help on that scenario. And back in the day, even like at Lake Washington, we would pull crankbaits sometime in the summertime, and these fish are literally right under the surface almost. So we'd run Bandit 100s. So changing up the style crankbait you're running to shallow divers can help you put even more fish in the boat. But, you know, going up to a 40, even 50-pound Power Pro, if that's what you use as far as braid goes, make it float up a little bit better. You know, kind of seen a lot of people say, I see a fish report on Robert. I want to highlight real quick. There's Mr. Pat Robbins. We went fishing today. Enjoyed it. Robert Hughes. It caught 55 today by 1 o'clock on cranks. Robert, what lake were you at? I know a lot of people are wondering that right now. Greg, he says brakes are like zero-turn lawnmower. That's a very good comparison. Yeah, Chad, fishing them without. Let's see. He says, I fish tournaments without them. Yeah, it ain't easy. A lot more work, a lot harder. And you're going to see just about all the top guys having brakes on their boats. I mean, it's just a ton of help when it comes to boat control. And, you know, if you're just getting into using live sonar and you're thinking about boat control, and a lot of times I'll get in and fish with people and they're saying, well, how do you get better at boat control? And one of the things that I would suggest is find something that's fixed that goes like a bridge piling or a standing timber, something that you can see with your eyes and also that goes under the surface that you can see on your live sonar, live scope, and learn how to keep that in your picture on your unit. So say like a bridge piling, for example, I would try to learn to keep it no matter what the current's doing or what the wind's pushing you. Learn just how to keep that one bridge piling focused on your screen. Don't worry about catching fish in the beginning. Just learn that control on how do you keep from running into it and keeping it on the screen no matter how the wind or current would be pushing you. That will, once you kind of master just keeping something on the screen, and if you start out with something that you can see above the water and also below the water, it's going to help you learn a little bit faster, in my opinion. Some other guys might can chime on here and give you some more tips on even on that, but learn how to keep it on your screen throughout it. Pat, I'm glad you learned a lot. He said, I learned a lot today. Thanks. Thank you guys for coming. I had a blast. Brandon, yep. Dustash picked a great time to go on vacation. Good thing about it is I go on vacation in August. Ontario won't work on the shaft. Cornfield has a mount for that. Appreciate that, Tracy. You know, Chad, he said, I still say Terry Stewart should have a percentage of crappie break sales. It was his idea, LOL. You know, Chad, I definitely recall, I actually, one of the first videos that we shot was of Terry Stewart's boat, and it was at an AC tournament down here on Ross Barnett a couple of years ago. And Terry was using them to actually spider rig with. He put 2 Tarovas on the back of his Ranger 522, and he would use them to spider rig. And, you know, it was a great idea by Terry because he figured out quickly that it helped him become a little bit more silent even on his approach when he was spider rigging. And I know he won a lot of money doing it even back in the day before, you know, really live scope or live sonar was a thing. He was spider rigging doing it. Bobby, he's been on vacation now taking care of a boat. Been a while before back on water. There's Mr. Bobby and Miss Linda. Appreciate you guys fishing with me yesterday. Had a blast. They took their granddaughter Lily yesterday with us, and she wasn't really all that crazy about holding crappie, but I think she really enjoyed crappie fishing. And I think we've got a new young lady in the sport introduced that's going to really like it. She did good. Marty McIntosh in Central North Carolina. Marty, I wish you were closer. I'd love to go up there and pull crankbaits and catch that many right now. Matt England, hammering them on timber in 4 to 20 foot of water. Like, what kind of depth are you guys seeing as far as that timber fishing up there, Matt? got another question I'm coming to, but you know, kind of discuss thermoclines and it's getting hot. I know this weekend they're already forecasting 95, 96 degrees here for a couple of days in a row. And you think, all right, this is the time I need to really start paying attention to a thermocline. And, you know, for me, our reservoir is actually the spillway itself is pulled from the bottom of the lake by gates that lift up and it sucks it out the bottom. But the easiest way to ever figure out if you've got a thermocline, especially in a lake that has a reservoir that's the water's getting drawn from the bottom, you just drive anywhere near it and you'll smell like rotten eggs everywhere. And you can guarantee it's some thermocline set up in that lake. Also, you know, we would recognize it from, you know, on down scan. It just looks like a layer on your screen is a lot fuzzier than one layer. And that's going to be the bottom layer is going to be fuzzy. And that top water column might be, it's just not going to look as fuzzy on your units from using a down scan or a 2D and definitely live sonar. You can actually see the two different layers of water column. Another really easy way to tell that you're having a thermocline set up is a lot of times I'm going to see a lot of small dead floating catfish on the lake. That's a real easy sign for me to say, all right, there's a thermocline setting up. Some of these fish aren't adjusted and they're dying from it. But that's a really good way to figure out that. Okay, Mike, I got a great question here. If you're only catching 6-inch fish while you're long lining, how would you change it up to catch the bigger fish? One, Mike, probably would be the profile and go up a little bit bigger profile and possibly go a little bit deeper. A lot of times these smaller fish, and you'll see it on brush piles as well, those smaller fish on the top end and those bigger fish a little bit deeper. So it could be just by going a little bit deeper and changing up the profile to a little bit bigger body presentation. And I've got one here. You know, this is a Bobby Garland stroller, and it's 2.5-inch bait. And I mean, yeah, I definitely have caught 6-inch fish, but a lot of times if you're in an area that has a lot of small fish, change over and kind of move to the outside edge of it. One of the coolest patterns that I've ever seen, I think, happened, I want to say 5 years ago, and it was in the fall at Lake Washington, and I could see shad busting on the water surface just like crazy. And of course, us crappie fishermen were thinking, all right, that's where I need to fish, is where all these shad are busting the water. I could pull through that area and catch a lot of the 6 to 8-inch fish. And finally, a light bulb kind of struck me, or because of a fish. I had a bite and caught a keeper, and all the keeper crappie, the bigger crappie, were on the outside area of a big area that was holding shad. It was almost like, and this was a scenario in my head, which could be crazy, probably might be, but the scenario for me was these bigger crappie had an area and they just had big, I'm talking acres of shad kind of pinned up. And those small fish would run inside and run shad out where those bigger fish were waiting. So I figured out that day that I needed to troll the outside edge of that shad to catch the bigger fish. Now, if I went inside to where the shad were, we'd catch small fish. But as soon as I really stuck to and started trolling on the outside area, we caught a ton of the bigger fish. And I actually remember telling the clients I had in the boat that day, I was like, watch, I think I've picked up a pattern here, and kind of told them what I saw. And sure enough, you know, it was like, you know, they read the manuscript for me or something, but that's exactly what it was those small fish and shad were pushing the area, and those bigger fish were just like guarding the outside edge, which was just one of the things I love about crappie fishing, patterns like that I'll never forget probably. Joey, let's see, he's been catching them on structure in 15 to 25 foot of water, piled up, water temperature 84 degrees. Man, summertime pattern, ABC right there. Brad, what happened to the paddles? What paddles are we might be talking about, David? I might be a little lost on that one. Refresh my memory. Are you talking about drift paddles? Let me know, David. I'd like to answer that question. Stephen, great question on this. Have you heard any updates what's going to happen with the new Mississippi fishing regulations? I have not. I will get on here shortly, but you can check out Mississippi Department of Wildlife and Fisheries, their next Wildlife Commission hearing. Typically, it's on Thursdays, so it actually could be this week. They will live stream it. It was presented to the board, it passed, and usually it's like a 30-day waiting period for public reaction to it. And then after that, it would go into law or they would modify it some. I see that regulation, just how I've seen it happen in the past anyway, I would say it would probably go into effect July 1st if everything goes as they presented it. Personally, I really hope they take out the dropping it down to 3-pole regulations. I do not agree with that at all. Some other things, I just got to kind of trust these biologists and let them know, if that's what they think, that's what we got to do. I do not agree with the regulations, though. Ginger. Her hot baits up at Enid today was solid chartreuse and orange crush. Steve Reynolds, what's the main difference in how you fish clear water versus muddy water? It depends on the lake itself. My lake right now, Ross Barnett, we've got clear water, and clear water for us is about 18 to 24 inches. And that's on a slick day. Muddy water is 2 inches of visibility. Clear water, I think you can downsize and use more natural tone colors when it comes to bait. So smaller profiles, colors like monkey milk, for example, are great in clear water. When it comes to muddier waters, I like using bigger profiles and brighter and darker baits. So that would be one of the biggest things I would change would be the bait colors. That's a Slab Hunter 2.25, believe, and that's horsefly color, which is orange. Great muddy water bait, and Dust Ash's favorite pecan cream, that dark brown, 2 dark colors, well, 1 dark, 1 bright, great muddy water, bigger profiles compared to an itty bit to say. Another thing is clear water. I think that you can go a little faster. Your baits can move faster typically. Muddy water, a lot of times you have to slow down. And in that scenario, you might go to, let's say, Grenada Lake in August, and clear water up there might be that 18 2-foot, and you're thinking, this is not clear water. Well, for that body of water, that is clear. So it kind of depends on the lake and, the differences in that to say. Clearwater, Eagle Lake is probably the clearest that I typically normally fish. I have fished Lake Hamilton, and a lot of times you have to stay further away from the fish to catch them effectively. If I was going to pull crankbaits, for example, in a lot of clear water, I would grab me some of these church tackle planter boards, if that looks right, and try to get away from the boat, or even long line. And these little mini boards like this are great to long line. You'll notice that those boards away from the boat will catch more fish. Longer poles, So there's a couple different things and a couple different scenarios that really go when you're talking about clear water versus muddy water. Pat Robbins, real, stop, real. He's heard that a lot today. Stephen Sullivan, he thinks 1.8 is ideal for cranks. Torch, pulling Delta's custom crankbaits, 300 style, 6 to 7 foot deep, crappie up in a water column, 1.6. Great report, Torch. He's been smoking them. I've been seeing them on there. Greg and Ginger, y'all might want to go to your camp. Let's see, Kemp. Man, we casted some fish this weekend that bolted off, then turned around and chased it for about 10 foot, stopped. What's the deal with that? They get scared by the splash. Yes, they can. That's one of the reasons I actually like casting past them. On some slick days, it actually can attract them of hearing it splash. So it's all about eliminating what's not working. So if you're casting two fish and all of a sudden you see them run off like that, that splash will spook them sometimes. But I like to cast past my target, bring it down about mid depth of the target to say, and then once I get directly over the target, and Pat Robbins will tell you he fished with me today, but I want those baits to drop down on them, and I don't want them to drop 2 or 3 inches. I want them to drop 2 or 3 feet, so they see the baits coming down toward them, and then once you get near them, pull up away from them, and that's been the key for me anyway. James, what conditions in June do you stay with pulling jigs instead of cranks? That really goes lake to lake. Personally, in my experience, I don't feel like I lose as many fish pulling jigs compared to crankbaits. And if you haven't done a lot of them, some guys may even disagree with this, but because you got 2 treble hooks, you think those fish just automatically get hooked really well and they stay on there very easily. And that's not really the circumstance for me. I have a higher percentage of hookup and boat percentage compared to cranks. Jigs kind of outperform cranks as far as actually putting the fish in the boat. Another good thing about the jigs compared to cranks is I don't think you have on your throwback as high as mortality, just because if you usually get a fish in hooked by a crankbait, they're hooked in a couple spots to actually get them all the way in. So I don't think you kill as many fish that you're trying to throw back. Sometimes it's just part of fishing, but I feel like I catch and boat more fish pulling jigs instead of cranks. And there's some lakes, Ross Barnett is a great example, and I can go out and fish the same areas and catch way more on crankbaits than jigs right now. And I don't know if it's just the style and the vibration and the wiggle of those crankbaits compared to jigs that entice more baits. But this lake here for me, and I'm talking 10 plus years doing both of those techniques, crankbaits outperform jigs in the month of June. Now, you talk about November, jigs are going to outperform cranks in October, and probably just about every other season we have, jigs outperform crankbaits. But on this lake, in the month June and July, and probably even in August, crankbaits are going to outperform jigs. So kind of, a trial and error thing. Another thing, guys, I want special thanks to Bobby Growing Baits for making sure we do this, guys, every week. We've got a lot of good things coming up. The month of July is going to be fantastic. Like I said, if you hadn't had made plans yet and you want to go pull crankbaits, and we're going to hang out up there at the Grenada Lake at the PTG as far as that tournament at the end of the month. It's a crankbait only tournament. It's going to be a fun thing, and that's what I'm going for there, is to have some fun with some of my buddies and also my wife. So if you've got some plans to go to Grenada anytime soon, make sure you join us for the crankbait tournament in June up there in Grenada. Oh, Dean. Dean McCoy had 33 on Lake Egypt last Thursday, casting a 148 hair jig, all black crappie. Man, that's a small jig. Are you casting it by itself, Dean? I know, Dean, we actually got a podcast coming out here in the next week or so of how he makes big steak beds up there in Kentucky Lake and some of the tricks of putting in steak beds. Nothing I want to talk about tonight and ask you guys. I would like to do a today's bite with somebody that fishes nighttime a lot, summer nighttime crappie fishing. And that's really what I want to focus on is some of the ways to get into going to catch crappie at nighttime. You know, for me, we would hang some green lights off the piers and wait around for them. But I know there's some guys that take it to a whole nother level than I've ever taken it to. And I'd like to hear about it. So if you've got somebody that comes to mind or even yourself that is really keyed in and do a lot of nighttime crappie fishing in the summertime, that's what I want to talk about. It's the summertime crappie fishing, how to catch them. So if you're that guy or if you know that guy or gal, shoot me a email, crappieconnection@gmail.com, or give me a call up and find my number anywhere, or just shoot me a private message. But I'd like to cover that. I think that'd be a really good today's bite thing to talk about. Eric, he's asking about weedless hair jigs. Are there makers of weedless hair jigs? And if so, does Lure Net carry them? Eric, can't spill a lot of beans yet, but I know there's some new jig heads coming out. That's kind of what you're talking about. And it should be on Lure Net here shortly. Cajun Fishing Hound. Best time of the year for your bite. You know, Cajun, I would say the best time, man, June is probably my favorite month. Typically, and this week is probably not a good example, but typically I don't have the wind to contend with every day. Usually fish are on fire. Last week, like I said, I had Hank Jr.'s son-in-law and his grandson, and we kept 70 crappie last Thursday. And, it was a nice light wind and got to really fish a lot of good stuff, and we totally smoked them. And I don't know how many different trips I did last week that, just the fish are active. They're wanting to feed. It's just a matter of you can get to them every day. And as the summer kind of progresses and gets hotter and that wind kind of lays down, I can really fish a lot of different areas, a lot of different pieces of structure. So June would probably hands down be my favorite month. I know it's hot. I know a lot of people are going to say I'm crazy. James, let's go back to Charles. He's got 16 Friday fishing on Kendo Lake, 10 to 12-foot flooded timber using black and chartreuse 80-bit slab hunters. A 1/32 ounce head. Absolutely, man. Those are deadly little baits. James is asking, what size crankbaits using long lining? Well, there are actually two different techniques when we're talking about like pulling crankbaits or long lining. Long lining is typically done with jig heads, that's a 1/16, but long line jigs typically use anywhere from a 1/32, a 1/16, and a 1/8 is the three sizes I use probably 95% of the time. Pulling crankbaits, and I'm trying to see if I got one on my desk here. I'm sure I got one somewhere here. But typically I'm going to use Bandit 300s, and you can find those on lurenet.com. Also, if you decide to order some crankbaits on there, you can save 15% off by using Crappie Connection 15 on all that Lure Net stuff, which is a wide selection with everything. Yeah, Chad, I agree with you, bro. It's been fishing a long time. Some days you still feel like a rookie, always learning. Man, that's the great thing. I know that's probably the same thing you're thinking is, um, you know, it would get boring if they just bit and you caught them every single day the same way. It was just, easy. We probably wouldn't love it as much. Huh. USS Crappie Keeper, he said he's seen a lot of pontoon boats fishing at night here on the res lately. Oh, that's pretty interesting. Keep posting them up there, guys. If you got any questions, Jeremy, pulling crankbaits on Kentucky Lake on fire. Jeremy, what part of Kentucky Lake can name some crankbaits you're using, bro? I know you got them. Guys that haven't done it yet, make sure you hit that subscribe button, follow on both platforms. They're so important for us. You guys are what makes the Crappie Connection keep on going. The month of July is coming up. A lot of things are happening in July when it comes to fishing in general, as far as new products and new things. And I've got some plans going down to icast and get the crappie fishing news firsthand for you guys down there. Been to icast before. It's probably been 5 or 6 years since I've been, so I'm really looking forward to going down there and seeing a lot of new products by all the manufacturers, from the big boys, from Ultrex, new Ultrex, trolling motors, or whatever. It's going to be all released at icast. Garmin, if they got any new things coming out. So can't wait to see what actually they have coming. Weekend Warrior report from Sardis. Fishing was good during the week. Fished a lot of brush tops with Mr. Charles Henderson. Went Enid Saturday and Sunday. Fish were striking the weight. Change colors didn't work, so I sized up my jig and I started smashing it. Color was Grenada Gold. I love the color. Larry, great question. Fixing to put brakes on a 20-foot Express. Do you recommend 30 or 40 trolling motors? Also, would you suggest getting the nudge system? Larry, honestly, I probably would think 30s would be enough for your boat. It doesn't take a whole lot, and I've got 240s, and it will stop my big Ranger's 620 in a heartbeat. So I think 30s would do you just fine, to be honest with you. And on the nudge system, I use it some. I don't use it as much as I do the brakes. That's just me personally, and I might change it as I get better using that, Larry. But it's something that, definitely, if you can afford to get that little bit of a accessory, I'd go ahead and do it. But I think 30 would probably do fine on your boat. Huh. Wow. Torch. That's awesome. Running 18-foot PSTs. Talking about pro staff, trolling poles, being in poles. 0 the line counter at reel and let out 5 feet. Wow, those fish are shallow then. Robert, he said that his bandit color was hottie toddy was hot. I like this question, Mr. Charles, and I have seen this happen a lot. It says, when casting a fish, do you find that the jig falls faster on a calm lake and slower on a choppy lake, and why? Well, there's a couple reasons why. Yes, I think it's going to fall the same, but there's different factors that's going into effect on that choppy lake. Whenever I get higher winds and I'm fishing out in big rollers, I like to go into heavier size. That wind and wave will actually push your line. So if you're casting out and you're facing the wind and it's those waves are coming towards you, that actually those waves will carry those jigs back towards you. Even though you're thinking that don't sound right, I have really seen that this year. So Yes, I definitely think they fall faster on a calm lake and slower on a choppy lake, and it's because of the wave current, and sometimes it's because of the wind actually pushing your line, even if you're holding your pole up any at all. Um, so that's the reason why. Kemp, what's your favorite style jig head to cast with? You know, my favorite day in and day out is going to be the Crappie Pro overbite jig heads, and it's a sickle style hook. There's only 2 left in that package because I probably used them all by now. But that's a 1/16th, a 1/32nd, and a 1/48th. I like a sickle style hook if I have no plans on using a minnow or anything, which is 99% of the time. And I have seen those eye hole jigs, and they are great jigs as well. Marty, he got an invite. Man, I'd love to come to Toledo Bend. I cannot imagine going to Toledo Bend in the summertime. I just, like I said, Marty, you probably heard me say it before. I fished Toledo Bend about 7, 8 years ago in the summertime, and I don't know if I ever seen that many fish on brush as I did down there. David, what mistakes, not breaks, slow down. Yeah, breaks will help you with that. John Mayo, he says a 40. Come on, guys. Got any questions for me? Shoot them up here. Miss Kathy, yeah, Dustin, he's going to be the daddy in August. We're going to see if he can run the show. I probably have to get him a babysitter or something on here to kind of help him make sure he don't screw up too much. Just joking, not really. But he'll be running the show in August. Just 1 week though. What's up, Shane? That's right, Chad. He's gonna have to babysit and run the show. It's gonna be interesting for you guys to watch that week. Kent, will the crappie run down into that thermocline? They can run down to it, but not for very long. They're gonna stay up above that thermocline. I seen a hint of a thermocline about 3 weeks ago. It didn't last long, and typically, you know, a big windy day can kind of actually blow it off the lake to say and mix up that water enough that it dissipate a lot of times. But those crappie are going to be right above that thermocline. William, have you ever tried a jig trailer? I'm guess you're talking about like on crankbaits, and yeah, I have some, and they will catch some more fish. You know, typically I don't, but they would definitely wouldn't hurt anything to try it. USS Crappie, share your thoughts on safety while on the water. Man, there's so many of them. You know, one is always wear your life jacket, especially in the colder months. But wear your kill switch if you're operating the boat is going to be, man, it's so crucial. That I've seen somebody fall out of a boat before, and the boat start doing that death swirl around them, and somebody had to come save them. And they didn't have a kill switch on, and there's a lot of people that lose their lives every day across this country from not wearing a kill switch and also life jackets. But also another thing that happened 3 weeks ago on the reservoir. At the end of the day, I had one guy in the boat with me, and we're going back to the boat ramp, and it was 3 to 4 foot rolling swells out on the reservoir, which are pretty big waves. And I heard an air horn off to the side, and it was a elderly gentleman that was fishing by himself, and the wind picked up and caught him in a bad situation. He was washed up on the bank, and I would have never seen him washed up on the bank if it wasn't for his air horn. So make sure you have some kind of apparatus from a whistle to an air horn so you can get help if you need help on the water. And it's also required. But having an air horn and wearing your kill switcher, man, they're so important. And with a lot of other safety stuff, life jackets and everything else. But I would definitely recommend looking into that. And taking a boat or safety class, very easy to do. Robbie, do you ever fish Eagle Lake in the summertime? I have not a whole lot, but I would like to, and I need to. I would like to go over there and fish some of that brush. And Torch, he's been catching them over there right now. Definitely appreciate everybody coming on here tonight. I survived a full hour just talking to you guys. Appreciate everybody hanging with me tonight. And like I said, I know it's Dustin's on vacation. I hope he enjoyed himself. But, you know, the show must go on, like they say on show business. And definitely thank you for Bobby Garland Baits, lurenet.com. Got anything you want to purchase off LureNet, make sure you use the discount code Crappie Connection 15, get you 15% off. Even if you're watching this broadcast at a different time, and I know a ton of people do because I see the numbers. So if you're watching this at a different time, take 1 second for me and hit that thumbs up, hit the like, and hit subscribe. One very unique fact that I see on YouTube is, you know, less than half our people are subscribed to the Crappie Connection on YouTube. And I know it can be a pain for some of you folks to do that, but if you hadn't hit the subscribe button yet, make sure you do that for us. It helps us out a ton. And, you know, we'll be back next week. Dustash will be off vacation, and we'll put him back. We'll really get him next week with you guys' help. But it's been fun. We survived it. Hopefully, I'm going to make sure I got anybody's questions left because I like answering before I get off here live. Okay, question from James real quick. What conditions occur when it's better to stay with pulling jigs or pulling cranks or vice versa? You know, for me, that scenario would be very high winds. You can get away with controlling your depth better pulling cranks on a high rolling lake. Yes, Bobby, I'm coming to Grenada on the 29th. Shane Jones is power trolling jigs as productive as pulling crankbaits. Every day is different, Shane. You know it. You know, some days everything's not going to work and one's going to outperform the other. It's just nothing's set in stone what's going to work best every single day. David, you call them paddles on your power poles. Won't they stop you? That's what I figured you was talking about, David, earlier. No, those paddles won't stop you. They will slow you down, but they will not stop you completely. Kobe, what's up? Kobe, send me a message and I can send you that crappie dip, and I'll see if I can post it tonight. Kent Driscoll come up with that a couple years ago, and it is absolutely delicious. Jerry, if the back of your boat is limited on space because you long line from the front, you can long line from the side of the front, if that makes sense. I wouldn't do it directly off the front, but you can long line off the sides. You know, look at 18-foot, 20-foot poles as far as your first pole, then stair step them out the side. But yes, you can long line off the front of the boat of the side of it. Jeffrey, do you pull straight tail baits or curly tails? If I'm a long line jigs, I'm going to use a Bobby Garland stroller. That's just what I have total confidence in that bait. Here's another one. It has literally caused a lot of crappie deaths in my boat through the years. Sage. Let's say, appreciate you guys. Until next week, guys, we will see you. Holla at me. See ya.